Hey friends, hello and welcome back. In this video, we'll talk about the fourth section of the poem The Ballad of Reading Jill written by Oscar Wilde. In earlier videos, we have talked about first, second and third stanza and also about the introduction, and we have also read out the whole poem. This is the sixth video about Ballad of Reading Jill. Let's start discussing section 4 line by line. Section 4 begins with stanza 67. So let's start with stanza 67. There is no chapel on the day on which they hang a man. The chaplain's heart is far too sick, or his face is far too wan, or there is that written in his eyes which none should look upon. Chapel is a clergyman, and wan means pale. On the day in which the man is hanged, there is no church service or blessing from the chaplain. The face of chaplain is too wan, and his heart is tired. He seems to feel the darkness of these moments as well. Stanza 68. So they kept us close till nigh on noon, and then they rang the bell, and the warders with their jingling keys opened each listening cell, and down the iron stair we tramped, each from its separate hell. Meaning, prisoners were kept in their cells till noon, then the bell was rang, and doors of the cells were opened, and the prisoners came out of their cells. Stanza number 69. Out into God's sweet air we went, but not in wonted way. For this man's face was white with fear, and that man's face was grey. And I never saw sad men who looked so wistfully at the day. After the cells were open, we went into the God's sweet air out, but not in the way we wanted, because the faces of the people were white and grey, and no man was there who looked wistfully at the day as Woodridge used to look. Stanza 70. I never saw sad men who looked with such a wistful eye upon that little tent of blue we prisoners called the sky, and at every careless cloud that passed in happy freedom by. Wilde would never see another sad man who was able to look upon the day with the same wistfulness that Woodridge did. The men, including himself, were able to see the clouds in sky, but were not able to view them as impassively. To them, the clouds were the symbol of unreachable freedom. But there were those amongst us all who walked with downcast head, and knew that had each got his due, they should have died instead. He had but killed a thing that lived, whilst they had killed the dead. Amongst the men that walk outside, there were those who knew that they should be executed as well. They all know that they have committed the same crime or the similar crime, but they all have killed a thing that was already dead, the hope inside themselves, while Woodridge has killed his wife, and his wife was living while hope was dead. For he who sins a second time wakes a dead soul to pain, and draws it from its spotted shroud, and makes it bleed again, and makes it bleed great gouts of blood, and makes it bleed in vain. Shroud is the cloth put round the dead body before burying it. Spotted is the cloth with the spots, and gout is in large amount. Great gouts of blood means blood in large amount. Here, Wilde notes that any man who is able to sin a second time will take up a dead soul to pain. It will rouse a man from his perpetual nature. It is like opening a great wound that will not stop bleeding. And doing this is totally useless according to Oscar Wilde. Stanza 74. Silently we went round, and through each hollow mind the memory of dreadful things rushed like a dreadful wind, and horror stalked before each man, and terror crept behind. We went round and round without speaking anything, but our minds were empty. Hollow is empty, and through each hollow mind, every empty mind, the memory of dreadful things, dreadful, horrible things, terrible things, the memory of terrible things rushed like a dreadful wind. Wind is wind, rushed like a dreadful wind, and horror stalked. Stalked means moved slowly in order to kill. And horror stalked before each man, before everybody, and terror crept behind. Terror came creeping behind. Stanza 75. The warders strutted up and down and kept their herd of boots. Their uniforms were spick and span, and they wore their Sunday suits. But we knew the work they had been at by quicklime on their boots. Warders means guards. Guards strutted up. Strutted up means walked proudly, walked in a proud way up and down, and kept their herd of brutes. Herd of brutes is group of prisoners. Brutes are the prisoners, herd is the group. And kept their herd of brutes. Their uniforms were spick and span. Uniforms of the guards were very clean and tidy. Spick and span, very clean and tidy. And they wore their Sunday suits. But we knew the work they had been at. But prisoners knew what they had done, because there was quicklime on their boots. Quicklime is the lime powder used to bury the people, and because of that, these people knew that what work these people have done. For where a grave had opened wide, there was no grave at all, only a stretch of mud and sand by the hideous prison wall, and a little heap of burning lime, that the man should have his pall. The prisoners knew what guards have done, because they have seen the quicklime on their boots, and because where there was a grave, wide open grave earlier, there was no grave now. There was no grave at all. There was only a stretch of mud and sand at that place where there was a grave. There was only a stretch of mud and sand by the hideous prison wall. It was by that hideous prison wall. And there was a little heap of burning lime. Burning lime is roasted lime, which is used for decomposing the bodies. A little heap of burning lime, that the man should have his pall. Pall is to become less or decompose, so that the dead body of Woodridge should decompose. To speak in simple words, the warders had been about the job of burying Woodridge. They had a grave that was no grave at all. It was only a bit of mud and sand next to the wall of the prison. There they threw in the body and covered it with lime to help speed up the decomposition and disguise any smell. For he has a pall, this wrecked man, such a few men can claim. Deep down below a prison yard, naked for greater shame, he lies with fetters on each foot, wrapped in a sheet of flame. He has a pall, that means his body decomposed. This wretched man is Woodridge. Such a few men can claim, only few men can claim that it is so. Deep down below the prison yard, deep down in the grave, naked for greater shame. He was lying naked for the greater shame. He was shameful. He lies with fetters on each foot. There were fetters on each foot, wrapped in a sheet of flame, and these fetters were wrapped in the sheet of flame. There was burning lime, and it was wrapped in that. And all the while the burning lime eats flesh and bone away. It eats the brittle bone by night, and the soft flesh by day. It eats the flesh and bones by turns, but it eats the heart alway. The burning lime continuously keeps on eating flesh and bone. It eats brittle bones, brittle in the sense easily broken. It eats brittle bones by night and soft flesh by day. During the day, it eats the flesh. It eats the flesh and bones by turns, during the day and during the night, by turns. It once eats the flesh and once eats the bones. It eats the flesh and bone by turns, but eats the heart always. But it always keeps on eating the heart, though it eats the flesh and bone by turns. 79. For 3 long years they will not sow or root or seedling there. For 3 long years the unblessed spot will sterile be and bare, and look upon the wondering sky with unreproachful stare. Here, Wilde speaks about the future events that will take place on the spot where Woodridge is buried. For 3 long years, they means people in the prison, they will not root, plant anything, seedling, plant young plant, they will not root, seedling, or do anything. They will not sow anything there. They will not sow or root or seedling anything there. For 3 long years, the unblessed spot is the spot where Woodridge is buried. That spot will sterile and bare. It will be sterile. Sterile means barren. Bare means there will be nothing on it. So it will be without anything, and look upon the wondering sky, and that spot will look at the sky with unreproachful stare. Unreproachful means not complaining stare. There will be no complaint for the spot about the sky or anything else. They think a murderer's heart would tempt each simple seed they sow. It is not true. God's kindly earth is kindlier than men know, and the red rose would but blow more red, the white rose whiter blow. They means people in the prison. They think that murderer's heart would tempt means pollute, contaminate, or put a spot on something. Those people believe that if they plant something there, it would be tainted by the murderer's heart. But that is not true. The earth that belongs to God is kindlier than men know. If they were to plant flowers there, red rose would only be more red, and a white rose would be whiter. Stanza 81. Out of his mouth a red, red rose, out of his heart a white. For who can say by what strange way Christ brings his will to light, since the barren staff the pilgrim bore bloomed in the great Pope's sight? Wilde imagines the sight of the roses growing over his grave. He sees the red rose coming from Woodridge's mouth and white rose coming from his heart. It is one of those strange ways that Christ brings his will to light. 82. But neither milk white rose nor red may bloom in prison air. The shard, the pebble, and the flint are what they give us there, for flowers have been known to heal a common man's despair. Shard means a metal glass, flint means hard grey stone that produces fire, and despair means sadness. The warderers of the prison would never let this happen, though. No roses would grow in the prison air. They only give the prisoners shard, the pebble, and the flint. Flowers not allowed to grow in the prison because they are known for comforting the people, or they may comfort the prisoners. So never will wine red rose or white petal by petal fall on that stretch of mud and sand that lies by the hideous prison wall, to tell the men who tramp the yard that God's Son died for all. Poet says, neither white nor red rose petal by petal fall on the ground, on the mud where Woodridge was buried by the hideous prison wall. And nobody is going to tell that God's Son died for all. Every person who walks there who's not going to know that God's Son is Christ. Christ died for all, for the men in the prison as well as the criminals. Yet, though the hideous prison wall still hems him round and round, and a spirit man not walk by night, that is with fetters bound, and a spirit may not weep that lies in such unholy ground. The meaning is, although the body of Woodridge is entered in such a hideous prison ground, the man is not disturbed. His spirit does not weep. Hems means turns up and sees. He is at peace, this wretched man, at peace or will soon be. There is no thing to make him mad, nor does terror walk at noon, for the lampless earth in which he lies has neither sun nor moon. Woodridge is at peace or will soon be. He does not hold any anger for his life. There is nothing that will make him mad. Besides, there is nothing to disturb him. There is not a moon or sun where he is now. 86. They hanged him as a beast is hanged. They did not even toll a requiem that might have brought rest to his startled soul, but hurriedly they took him out and hid him in a hall. Toll means ring or sing. Requiem means a prayer for the soul. Startled means disturbed. Meaning is, the warders of the prison treated him as a beast and hanged him thus. The men did not even speak a requiem or a piece about the dead man that could have brought him the peace or eased the soul. They hurriedly took him into his grave and buried him there. They stripped him of his canvas clothes and gave him to the flies. They mocked the swollen purple throat and the stark staring eyes, and with laughter loud they heaped the shroud in which their convict lies. Stripped, took away, canvas, strong, thick, swollen, thicker or wider, shroud is the cloth on the dead body. They means warders stripped him of his canvas clothes, strong, thick clothes. They stripped him and gave him to the flies. He was given to the flies. They mocked the swollen purple throat. Swollen purple throat, his throat was swollen because he was hanged and its color became purple. So they mocked it. And the stark and staring eyes, his eyes became stark, they were wide open, so they mocked them, and with laughter loud they heaped the shroud, the cloth, they heaped the cloth in which their convict lies, in which their convict means Woodridge was lying. Stanza 88. The chaplain would not kneel to pray by his dishonored grave, nor mark it with that blessed cross that Christ for sinners gave, because the man was one of those whom Christ came down to save. The chaplain of the prison would not kneel over the grave to say a prayer. It did not receive the blessed cross that was meant to help the sinner. Christ gave himself for the sinners of the world, but this sinner, Woodridge, did not even have a cross placed on his grave. And stanza number 89, it is the last stanza. Yet all is well, he has but passed to life's appointed bourne, and alien tears will fill for him pity's long broken urn. for his mourner will be outcast men, and outcasts always mourn. This section concludes with the speaker saying that even though all these terrible things have happened, all is well. The man has passed on as fate has appointed. There are tears spilled for him, but they are only from outcast men, and outcasts are always known for mourning. They keep on mourning. The fourth section comes to an end here. I hope you have understood it. Thank you very much for watching this video. See you in the next video.